What's up, everybody? So last week I posted a video on my Instagram where I acted side by side with myself. Dude, you mean like this? Yeah, exactly like this. Cool if I finish? Sorry, my bad. So I just wanted to show you guys how simple it is to get a shot like this done and give you guys 5 easy tips for how to achieve the same thing. So you ready? Let's go. Yo. Yeah, I just dab. It's 2020. There's no dabbing anymore. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back. Welcome here. As you saw before, this video is going to be a basic guideline for how to create a video or at least a scene where you are acting side by side with yourself. So let's get into it. Tip number 1. The first tip that I have for you guys is to create a script for yourself before you shoot. Now, I know that seems obvious, but in this scene that I had put together in my head, I'm like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do in my head. And so then I just started filming myself and I realized, wait a minute, I have to act side by side with myself. So your timing has to be on point, your acting has to be right. So in order to do that, you kind of have to create a more rigid dialogue so you can act it and react to it on the other side and have it seem natural and seem like it flows back and forth. There's the timing aspect of it. There's responding to specific lines. If you have a dialogue that you've set ahead of time, it becomes a lot easier than if you're just kind of winging it and saying lines that you think you know, and then feeling like, okay, I'm going to reply to those, but then you kind of don't know exactly what you said. So the first step is just come up with that basic dialogue, get it right, and then you can go ahead and begin acting the scene. Quick delay, quick break. Battery died. I'm back. I don't know what I was talking about. I was just rambling. Tip 2 is crucial. It is so important. And it's probably why you're watching this video, but the key to creating these types of scenes where you're acting side by side with yourself is to have an establishing shot before you get into the close-ups and the reaction shots and all the like intimate dialogue. You have to have that establishing shot with both characters in the scene. It kind of changes everybody's mindset and adds basically a production value to everything where people go, oh, okay, like this scene looks legit. I can now imagine where they are because I've seen the two characters side by side in a room, in a space. I understand that space. So you really want to set that tone to the video by starting with that establishing shot. It's a very basic process. It's not actually that difficult. The first thing you need is absolutely to have a tripod. You need to have a tripod or at least some sort of situation where you can put your camera somewhere where the camera will not move. That is absolutely crucial. We want to keep everything in that wide shot as static as possible. In order to do that, we need the camera to not move. The camera can't move. So that's why I highly suggest getting a solid tripod. You set it up, you have the camera in a sturdy place, and then you can record. The next part of that wide shot is you have to be sure that you are acting in the right direction. I know that sounds obvious, but it's very easy to get caught up and just kind of like, well, there's nobody there. So you're just kind of acting it sort of in an area. You got to be sure that you establish like, where is this character going to be in this shot? Where is their head going to be? So when I want to look them in the eyes, where do I look? And so once you know that, okay, now you have your direction and you can face them, and then you can basically go through the lines that you've already come up with and you can progress with the scene. So one thing I like to do before making that scene is I like to have my outfits ready so I know exactly what I'm going to wear for both characters. If I'm going to put on a hat, if I'm going to take off a shirt, I'd like to be ready to switch it up so that I can literally just go over, stop the recording, start the recording, and I have a new outfit on. So once you've gotten the wide shot, you've covered, you've shown the establishing shot, everybody knows where you are. Now it's really important to get the close-ups. So let's talk about how to do that because it's pretty basic, but there's some things you want to pay attention to and some things you want to remember when you're getting those close-ups. For one, the first thing is the camera should be on the same side of the characters as the tripod was. So when you move it over, because obviously if you're speaking in this direction, here's the character you're talking to, you want to move the camera over so that it's kind of towards, so you're looking towards the camera. But you still want to look past the camera the same way you were looking past it before. So if in this case, I'm talking and the camera's on my right side, when I bring it all the way over here and I act like I'm talking more directly to the character, I still want it to be towards my right side. Because basically that's the side where the audience is. They're getting used to seeing you like this. And you don't want to start looking this way in one shot and looking this way in the other shot, but being the same character, right? Because that's going to confuse people. People are used to, they want to see one character with one outfit who's used to looking this way and another character in another outfit who's looking that way. If you start mixing those two things up, it will get very confusing for your audience. So that continuity is super important. So what I do is I was literally just holding the camera in my hand, and I framed myself using my flip screen. And that's a super good way to do it, but you want to be sure that you don't end up looking at the flip screen because it's really easy to just look at yourself. So I was literally holding the camera, I moved it over, and then I imagined that I'm acting towards the character right here, and I literally just held it and I just did my dialogue like this. You want to act the same way you did before, or as close as possible, because again, for continuity and editing later, it'll be easier if you acted with a similar tone, if you said almost the exact same lines. It just becomes easier to put the scenes together. And then the last thing to remember in that process is you want to be sure you have the reaction shots. Don't just focus on getting the dialogue of you talking. You need to have those reaction shots, because that's where the humor, whatever you want to engage or whatever emotion you're trying to convey to the audience, that's where it comes in, is in the reaction of a character. So yeah, you want to be sure that you don't just focus on what you're saying, but also how you're hearing it. So deliver your line and then listen for what line the other character would be saying. And then when they say it, give yourself a reaction to that and then deliver your next line. Rather than just like reading each line one by one. Because if you just read each line back to back, you're not going to have those reaction shots. So tip number 4, if you did well on what I said for tips 1, 2, and 3, which is creating a dialogue, shooting your wide shot in a way where everything stays static except for the characters that are acting in the scene, and you did the dialogue well. And then on the third part, you shot the close-ups and you acted the same as you did in the first wide shot. It should be simple and easy to get to the editing part. There's only like a couple things you need to focus on if you've done everything else correctly up to this point. So basically with this scene, what you have is, or with any scene, you basically are going to have layers of video on top of each other. So the first layer is going to encompass the whole frame, right? Because it's on the bottom, you don't have to crop anything. The second layer, which is on top, you're going to put that on top of the first layer. And let's say on the first layer, your character's on this side, right? Then on the second layer, your character is going to be on this side. So what you need to do is on that second layer, this side is going to end up being empty, and you need to reveal the character on this side, which is on the track below. So you crop on the top track, you crop it over, 50% roughly of the screen, and then the bottom track will be revealed. So when that's revealed, you're going to see one character on this side and one character on this side. Very, very simple. If you shot everything exactly the same in terms of like the props in the scene, in terms of the exposure, in terms of the characters not crossing over the frame, then it should be pretty basic in terms of having those two shots. Now, it's never perfect, so you're always going to kind of see a little line in the middle usually. So what you can do then is there's a function on most editing applications. I don't know what you're using, but most of the ones that I use have an editing feature that's called edge feather. What the edge feather does is it takes the hard edge that you've cropped over and it actually blends it together so that it's not such a straight line. So it makes kind of an edge that blends from one side to the other. The more you do it, the more that blend spreads over into the frame. So you don't actually want to do it too much, because if you do it too much, it'll actually bleed over onto your characters, and then your characters will start to disappear. So you don't want to do that. but you do want to add some edge feather just to the point where the visibility of seeing that harsh line is gone. So if you can get rid of that line, then it's super basic. Now you just have to make sure that your characters are actually talking to each other with the right dialogue at the right time. In terms of the editing, I find it very, very easy to get caught up in liking your own dialogue and liking seeing yourself. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm a narcissist. I don't know. But what I really have to tell myself as I edit is to make it shorter, make it shorter, make it shorter, make the reactions quicker, make the dialogue quicker. Because it's my belief that people on the internet have no fucking attention span. So you want to be sure you're hitting them with the jokes, you're hitting them with the lines, you're hitting them with the whatever emotions you want to convey. You got to be getting them in there real quick. Other than that, the editing is fairly basic, and I hope it's easy. And you let me know if there's anything that I didn't go over in terms of the editing. The fifth and final tip is once you've done everything, you've completed the edit. I think it's a really important thing, especially to cover up like minor errors with how things might look. Maybe your close-up shots don't match your wide shot in terms of like lighting or color, or maybe even your wide shot from one side and the other side, the two split screens that are blended together. Maybe they don't exactly match up in terms of exposure. What I would do is I would export the whole video and then I would color correct it. Or you can even add some effects. It could be like, if you really did a terrible job, you can do some super heavy retro effects or put lens flares over the top or something. If you don't add any sort of correction in the end, then every clip will basically it will exist in its own world. But if you color them all the same and they all have the same look and they all have the same kind of feel, it ties it together so that it can be one cohesive visual aesthetic through the whole project. So I highly suggest even a minor color correction if you did a good job with the editing, or like something major if you really like did a bad job and you can see that like scenes don't work together. Make it black and white and make it look grainy or something, and then it'll tie it all into the same space. So those are the 5 tips for what to keep in mind when you're shooting and what the process is. If you did all those things, great. I just want to give you 3 quick things to avoid when you're shooting this, because these are things that I kind of made mistakes on. One, I shot my scene on a couch, which is a very soft surface, and there were pillows. And what happened was, when you sit on one side of the couch sort of leans in that direction and the pillows kind of move. And then when you sit on the other side of the couch, it moves the other direction. And what I didn't realize was that is changing the scene that the camera's seeing. So even though my camera didn't move, actually the couch itself moved. So you want to have as little movement in the frame besides your 2 characters as possible. Another thing is I used a really flimsy tripod. So I had to be really careful when starting the shot and stopping the shot, because it's very easy. Like you can easily hit the camera and then it moves and then you're messed up. You have to reframe it so it's in the exact same place, which is very difficult. So be sure you use a really good, or you either use a good tripod or you just be sure that you're not moving the camera when you're shooting the scene. The third tip is with the scene that I did, one character was really close to the window and one character was not, which actually ended up being a bit of a problem because the lighting on that character who was close to the window was much brighter. So I had my camera on an automatic exposure setting. So it let in less light when I was over there because I was brighter. And then when I was on the other side, it let in more light because I didn't have as much light on me. The problem was the wall behind me then also changed because, the walls, it's the same wall. So with the camera changing its idea of how much light should be let in, the wall on one side was brighter, the wall on the other side was darker. And so again, I solved it by using the edge feather, but if you can avoid having major exposure changes, that is another thing to avoid. That's pretty much it. That's the tips. Those are the things to avoid. This is one of my first videos giving you guys tips for how to shoot a piece of content similar to how I did it. So if you guys end up using this, please, please, please feel free to tag me or share your content with me so that I can see that something I told you maybe helped or whatever, or hopefully it doesn't lead you down a dark path of making horrible videos. I don't know. I gotta be honest with you. This is a lot. It's a lot harder sitting here talking to a camera than I thought it would be. I'm exhausted. Also, I turned off the AC in here because I didn't want the buzzing of the AC. But man, whew. Thank you for watching. Now go out and create some shit. All right, peace.